Bloomberg Audio Studios. Podcasts, radio, news.
This is the Closing Bell on the Stock Movers Report. The companies making moves at the close of U.S. trading with Carol Massar, Tim Stenovec, Romaine Bostick, and Scarlett Fu.
To the S&P 500 I go, and you've got most names in the index lower on this Thursday. You're talking about 383 to the downside, 119 to the upside, Matt, and one unchanged.
Yeah, one winner for every four losers, essentially. It's even worse if you look at the breadth of industry groups. IT was a gainer today because you have that Intel Apple story, which I still find so fascinating. You can do this the hard way or you can do this the easy way, right?
I don't think that's the same story.
Maybe Apple takes a stake in Intel. It may make a lot of other things easier for them.
We are calling it CEO diplomacy.
Yeah, so you see IT and really energy kind of flat, but they are the only green slices of the pie.
But on that point, I mean, I heard your interview a little bit earlier today, Carol and Tim, with Mark Gurman, who, of course, covers all things Apple. And you kind of put him on the spot there with some of the questions about Tim Cook. But I thought he kind of made a good point. I mean, look, there is a fiduciary duty that any CEO has to its investors and, for that matter, to its employees and its customers, and he's navigating that as he should do, right?
Yeah,
or he shouldn't be CEO.
I agree. We keep talking about that, right? If you don't really want to get on the radar of the White House or the administration, and you've got to think about your company and you got to think about the financials or your share price, I mean, right, there is a responsibility, but it's just kind of interesting to see how.
Well, you got to want to diversify too, right? You can't make all of your chips at TSMC all of the time. Why not get another foundry?
But they've moved away from Intel in the past, and Mark,
of course, they design them all in house, but where they design them and where they make them are two very different things.
Mark made the point, like, maybe they could make some of the, some of the chips that they use in some of the devices. There are so many, but that's not what this is about.
Either way, I'm going to say, if you're an Intel shareholder right now, you're pretty happy because you continue to see this stock moving up.
They're up 9% today, Carol Massar.
I know.
Are you going to get to your gainers eventually?
Yeah, well, that was my segue. Thanks for jumping in on it again.
9%, Matt.
All right. Where is Katie, the boys? Intel up almost 9% in today's session. It is the top gainer in both the S&P 500, the NASDAQ 100. It was also upgraded to neutral from sell over at Seaport Global. They see near-term upside for the chipmaker if it receives more direct investments. There you have it. That's pretty clear going forward. And of course, we've been talking about the Apple Intel, whether or not we get something out of that. Lithium Americas, guys, also an outperformer in a big way, up about 23% after almost a 96% gain yesterday. Heavy volume in today's trading today. White House proposed taking equity in the company during a renegotiation of some terms of a $2.3 billion loan extended by the Energy Department. Bloomberg News reporting that out. That came out on Tuesday. We've had Reuters reporting that the administration was seeking a stake of as much as 10%. Nonetheless, it's on everybody's radar. We are living in a very different capitalistic environment, it feels like, certainly with the government potentially taking stakes in various companies. All right, Synopsys, got to bring that one out, guys, because that too was a top gainer, but the S&P 500, NASDAQ 100 up about 4% here. Some reporting, the company out with a release that it and Taiwan Semi have been working together to shorten design cycle times on more efficient chip technology. So that caught the attention. So some good gainers there.
Well, what caught my attention was some of the decliners in the S&P 500. The worst performer on a percentage basis in there was CarMax by a long shot, down 20% today. Shares tumbled after the company reported weaker than expected results. It showed deepening strain in the used car market. Company executives actually came out and said fallout from President Trump's tariffs and rising distress among consumers were what led to falling sales and profit. There have been some recent challenges in the auto industry, as Matt is absolutely aware. Subprime auto lender Tricolor Holdings declared bankruptcy this month amid allegations of fraud. First Brands Group is preparing to file bankruptcy as soon as next week, Bloomberg News reported. Once again, shares down 20%, the worst performer in the S&P 500. Tesla, speaking of automakers, down 4.4%. It was the worst performer of the Mag 7 today on a percentage basis. Shares fell as European sales of Teslas fell 22% last month, giving a market share of just 1.9%. European car sales overall climbed 4.7% last month. It turns out that EV sales actually rose in the region last month. Hybrids, though, were a particularly bright spot.
By the way, that bears repeating. So European car sales rose 5%.
Yes.
EV sales in Europe rose.
And Tesla fell.
22%.
Yeah. Seems like a Tesla, a challenge particular to Tesla then. And that's why you had shares fall today, probably. Finally, Freeport-McMoRan, among the worst performers in the S&P 500 as well, fell another 6%, down 6.2% today. Fallout from the accident at the Grasberg copper mine in Indonesia continues. The accident at the mine killed 2 workers that left 5 missing, and it's led Freeport to declare force majeure on contracted supplies and slash its production guidance. We spoke to Joe Doe, who covers economic statecraft, and for years has covered metals and mining, and he talked to us a little bit about the negotiations between the Indonesian government, which controls 51% of the local entity, and now the concern that the government might want more of that mine ownership and what that could mean.
All right, a quick check on yields here. Up for a second straight day, up for the third time in the last 4 sessions. And a big part of the reason is that stronger economic data that now seems to be throwing just a touch of cold water here on the idea of whether the Fed actually does have the room to continue cutting rates beyond that first 25 basis points that we already got. I do want to go back to the stock market, though, and some of the individual movers. One of the decliners you didn't have on your board there, Tim Stenovec.
Oh, wow, you're targeting Tim this
I knew we were talking about this, so I didn't want to do it as one of the decliners.
Good programming.
Sometimes you got to think about this stuff.
That was a segue for you, Carol Massar. You still haven't picked up.
It was also barely down today. Yeah. It was down like 0.5 percentage point, too. So
is she going to talk about something?
She's going to talk about it.
Isn't that your story?
She's trying to get a word in, but
you know what?
We're not letting her. Go ahead, Carol.
Let's talk about Starbucks. I was going to put this in the category of meh. I mean, you have Starbucks closing, 1% of its stores in the United States and Canada, cutting 900 jobs. It's all part of its turnaround plan. And investors, not that impressed. The stock's down. It was up about 0.5% at its best levels of the session today, finishing with about a decline of about 0.5%.
You try to tee people up, Matt Miller, and sometimes they just don't. I don't know if you have this problem. You host a show yourself.
Yeah,
so you have to do this.
I think it's an exciting story, regardless of the share move. Because, look, they're firing 900 workers. They're closing only 1% of 18,000 stores.
Yeah.
But a lot of people have been coming out this morning and saying this is the right track, and maybe this is what they needed to do from the start, right? Brian Nichols been in office for over a year, and since then the stock has fallen 6%. Why didn't he do this earlier? Why didn't he maybe cut a little bit deeper? They just have too many stores, and they're not as exciting as they used to be.
But to that point,
they need to spruce it up.
Is 1% and 900 workers going to do anything? And look, I know these are corporate workers, and every job lost is terrible, but 360,000 employees is what the company has globally. So this is a small figure when you think about those numbers.
Precisely my point.
The Stock Movers Report from Bloomberg Radio. Check back with us throughout the day for the latest roundup of companies making news on Wall Street. And for the latest market-moving headlines, listen to Bloomberg Radio live. Catch us on YouTube, Bloomberg.com, and on Apple CarPlay and Android Auto with the Bloomberg Business app.